Do you know that if you study language and linguistics, that you will come away from it realizing that all of the stories of the Bible cannot be true, and that man did not come from Adam? Noah's flood is false, and the world was not refilled with his three sons. So according to the Bible, the three sons of Noah, their children and them all had different dialects of Hebrew, according to some scholars. Although Japheth's children spoke a different language, according to the book, and that is an argument among scholars to this day. But even if I admit it and let you have the idea of dialect, that they just spoke different dialects so that your Tower of Babel story can be somewhat true. But the Tower of Babel story says that the whole world spoke one language. That going back to Noah's kid, one language. Going back to Adam, to Seth, one language. Going back to Adam, one language. But if you were to speak to anyone who is a scholar in linguistics, ancient linguistics, then what you will find is that those stories cannot be true, based on the fact that the whole world has never spoken one language. There has never been a time in the history of man that the whole world spoke one language. And there is not one language that is the root language of every language. When we look here at the purple, what we're seeing is the Bantu language and its migration. The Bantu language has no connection to the Arawak, which is in the Central South America. There's no connection between those two languages. The Proto-European language, the Indus-European language, that also encompasses the Fertile Crescent. There is no connection between that language and the Bantu language. And there is no connection between the Sino-Tibetan language and any of those languages as well. All those languages developed independently on their own. And then as they migrated and also became agrarians and built societies, each one of those languages began to change and have differences depending upon where they were located and where the people migrated. And so they still maintained their connection to their origin, but they started to have different dialects and have changes. But they have all never been connected in ancient times. It is only because of exploration and conquering of people like the Greeks and the Romans that went into India, that came in contact with the Sino-Tibetans, that you started to have connections within those languages. Words start to be exchanged. The languages started to have some levels of melding together. And then the same thing happened with your Bantu and your Indo-European, and then the same with the Arawak. A great example, or easy example to understand this, would be the American English. American English is comprised of German words, and the base is English from England, but then it's comprised of German words. Then it got some Spanish in there, then some French, and then some Dutch, and then some Portuguese. So there's a little bit of everything, because people were coming from all those different countries with all those different languages, and although they were based in Latin, most of them, they still came to one area. And so the languages, as they start to deal with each other, we get this mixture until we have a formalization of American English. It's a very difficult language because, as some people know in the comments, where and where can be a little bit off-putting. But at no time during the time frame of the Tower of Babel were there a connection between the Bantu people and the people in the Fertile Crescent in Mesopotamia. They did not have that connection. They didn't have any connection with the people in Arawak who were speaking it from the Arawak language, or the Sino-Tibetan. They had no connections. So the Tower of Babel story is invalid because there were already people around the world who were speaking different languages. And all the people in the world didn't live in that one place. The Noah story is incorrect because if at the time frame that Noah's sons and they got off the boat, there were people all over the world speaking Bantu, speaking in the Arawak, speaking in the Sino-Tibetan. So the stories all invalidate themselves when you look at the reality of science. And the beautiful thing is that well, it's beautiful, but it's messed up at the same time. Many people try to claim that, oh, I'm a Hebrew Israelite. My family were connected to Hebrew Israelite. They migrated into Africa, and then that's why there are some Hebrew words that are in the Igbo language or in the Bantu language. Now, those are things that came much later. Those are things that happened when the Israelites were exiled. But they were exiled to a place where there were already people. When they were exiled to Africa, when it was exiled to Europe, when it was exiled out of Europe to the Americas and into Africa, those people were already there. It's not like they exiled and they were the only one there. And I know the claim is that then they sold them into slavery to come to America as if they were the only ones. We've already went over the fact that Judah land, or the kingdom of Judah in Africa, which is just the English and the Dutch and the Portuguese not being able to say Svida. And so they just called it Judah. Because you can say Svida or you can say Wayuda. And then for them, it was easier for them to just say Judah. And that is a false claim to say that that's where they came from. Yes, those people were conquered by the Dahomey. The Dahomey did sell them, but there was only about 500,000 to 1 million of those people. So it's not enough to claim that every black person in America's heritage is Hebrew Israelite, as well as the Spanish people and everybody else. So it's a bunch of bullshit. But you do see influences of different languages into other cultures, but most of those things happen later on, or more recently, in the more recent history of the 17th, 18th, 19th century. But your Bible stories go back to the BC era, and it just doesn't match. But y'all have a great day, and remember always, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.